On today's episode, we had Lisa come on. Lisa is a beautician, owns her own business down the Gold Coast, and she also has her own podcast and a bunch of other things as well, which I'll link down all below in the bio. And yeah, there was an awesome chat getting deep on most emotional and mental abuse and like ways to overcome it and a bunch of other stuff as well. Also too, if anything does come up in this podcast for yourself, feel free to reach out to any one of us, or even reaching out to a loved one or a friend or a medical professional as well, which have to be clear on that one. Studying. Before we jump in today, I have my own workshop coming up this week. Tickets are still available. I am planning on traveling around Australia with it, so you can get tickets for that. I just have to work out with all the restrictions and whatever else is going on when it will be, and then also too, if you would like to support the podcast a little bit extra, you can go to patreon.com/Studio of Mindfulness, which that's linked down below as well. And I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So yeah, we're going to be talking about a really big topic today. So with emotional and mental abuse, which is something I guess we've both been through. I think everyone's been through it to a slightly degree, because this is where a lot of the world's trauma, and this is why we have so many issues in the world, or one of the aspects of it. But yeah, I'll get you to introduce yourself and then run a little bit through your story, and then we'll jump and then go from there.
All right. Thanks, Mitch. My name's Lisa. I guess, like you said, I've just been tapping into myself and working a lot on personal development. And the more I kind of dig the layers off, the more stuff that I find out. I guess you could relate to that. And one of the big topics that I've spent a lot of time on is mental and emotional abuse. I guess it's really because it's had a lot of them moments where light bulbs go off, where the more I research or watch videos or read up about it, I read it like I'm writing it. I read it like that's what I've been through, that's what I've gone through, and why did I let that happen? I guess emotional and mental abuse is something that isn't seen, like physical abuse. So it's very mental on the victim, and you question yourself a lot. So I guess we're speaking all about it now, and I guess with people in our situation looking into it like us, they dig deeper and find out about it. But it really is important to make people aware and, do this podcast and let people know that it is something that does happen. I don't want to say it's normal, but it's normal to feel the way they're feeling, and it's definitely not okay to feel like that. I guess was in a relationship where I have been emotionally and mentally abused, and I isolate myself from my friends and family when in that situation. It's quite, I guess.
Yeah, it's like that's what a lot of people do, especially like the victims and stuff on that, going through that is the first thing. Is like you isolate yourself, thinking you're going to push away everyone because they're thinking, they're not going to understand. You're going to get in trouble if you speak up about it, and the whole situation is just going to go blow out of control. But then actual fact is it's normally quite the other way around. But it's so hard to even convince someone of that, or even trying to convince yourself that what's going on, it's not okay. When deep down it's not okay, and you can reach out for help, but you just don't feel like you're safe to reach out for help.
Yeah. So I guess what the victim can feel when they're being manipulated or gaslighted or emotionally and mentally abused, which is all similar, they can feel like they're questioning their own sanity. They're not feeling normal. They're obviously isolating themselves. They're feeling controlled without knowing they're feeling controlled at the time. You know, they're getting accused of things, and they're getting made up arguments. I know a lot of the narcissistic traits is projecting, turning it around, switching, that deflecting, that type of behavior. And that's all because they're doing the thing, whatever it may be, but they've reflecting on you, projecting on you. So the victim is feeling like they're questioning, you know, themselves constantly. So their self-esteem is so low. And I guess the longer they're in the relationship, the more confidence they lose, and the more self-esteem they lose as well. So that's a big, I guess, reason why they isolate themselves and hide away and from all their familiar people, because they're like in a bubble with this person, and it's really hard to get out of. As much as they're unhappy, it's so familiar, and yeah, they just stick around.
Yeah, I was going to say, because the brain absolutely, the brain hates change. And then especially when you get used to something like that, it's so hard to get out of it, because when you get out of it, you're stepping into a huge unknown territory, and it's a huge uncomfortable. So then that's why when you see like a lot of people, when they're in that situation, they'll get out, but they'll go straight back into it, because it's like what they know. And even like a little thing, I was watching a documentary today, and it's the same thing with like, say, homeless people, because they're so used to being homeless and the trauma and all that kind of survival skills they have with being homeless. When you put them in a home, they're going to destroy it and go back to the street, because that's all they know. So it's like, it's quite hard, because you need that kind of support network when you do just to the change. And I think that's the most important bit. I'll let you continue.
When you're in it, you wonder, how long have I been in it? Because how many people have I pushed away? Who is going to be there in the end? Do you know? Because when you are that kind of person, that empathetic, people pleaser, beautiful soul person, and you're letting the narcissist in that's abusing you, you've pushed all these beautiful people away, and you're allowing it to happen without meaning to hurt anyone. But that's just your trait, you know. That's what you've brought that person in, and you're wondering, how long have I been in that relationship, and who's going to be there in the end? Because you, as that empathetic, sensitive, beautiful soul, has allowed that to happen, you know, and you've ignored the signs. And that's one thing, is you might see the red flags, but you choose to ignore them. And I guess. And you also have to ask yourself too, why are you allowing it to happen? Because you know the whole law of attraction, you know, and you know what you put out, you receive. So you're wondering, is it something that you're allowing for some reason? There's something that you haven't fixed, or you're ignoring for yourself. Do you see?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, because like that's something I've done a lot of work on and had to think back on, because like a lot of the times, like when you allow these types of people in, because there's something, you know, as much it's them as well, it's something with you to allow them in, because it's like that feeling, because society promotes just a lot of the feeling of not being good enough, and then when you have these people coming in, they're so charming, they're probably the best person be around, especially when you get that, and then you get that, all the, you know, heightened emotions, you know, all the chemicals that come with it. So this person seems like, you know, they're great on the pitch, on the outside, sorry. And then, you know, because we are so conditioned to not feel good enough and all this stuff. So when, you know, even though we can see the red flags, but the green flags seem a little bit brighter than the reds, even though the red ones are the list is huge, but the green ones seem that little bit brighter, and we're feeling great. So we let them in, and then those couple of months start to go by, and then this is when the cycle goes.
Yeah. And that's where you have to dig deep into yourself to go, well, why you're allowing it to happen? You're seeing the green flags, liking them better than the red, but why is that? It's because, you know, you've got rejection, you know, abandonment issues, you know, you've got things that happened in the past that you haven't dealt with. And that's where you've got to dig deeper to go, why am I allowing that to happen? You know, if you were strong enough and you weren't so, I guess, sensitive and broken, and you had no trauma to fix, and you'd see the first red flag and be gone. So that's where it's a red flag in the victim, as to go, well, why did you let that in? Why did you ignore the red flag? Allow yourself to get hurt, so to speak.
Yeah, and like the big questions, like I like to ask, and this is like even with clients, and that when this type of stuff does happen, is it's like, because like our parents have a huge effect on how our lives play out, and way we get parented as kids as well. And so if our parents have a lot of self-esteem issues, and even though they can kind of hide it, but we still end up picking up those behaviors over time, and then they'll continue out into our relationships, because a lot of the time is within our relationships, we're trying to fix the relationships we have with our parents in someone else.
Yeah. It always comes up, doesn't it? If you go through counseling or therapy, and they always backtrack. They backtrack to, your adolescence and your childhood, and they talk about the child you, and so, what we're going through now, like what you just said, is what are we trying to fix? What are you trying to say to the child Lisa, or the child Mitch, and digging deeper as to issues you didn't even know existed. It's crazy. It's crazy how deep under the layers that is, and how much work you really have to put in to really tap into that.
Yeah, it's crazy, because it's like, when even when you look at society as a whole, like we aren't really taught, because like this child in us wants to be seen and heard, and sometimes it's ways is to yell and scream, for example.
Yeah.
And we do everything we can to suppress our emotions, so then we kind of don't really understand of why we do things until we start unpacking each layer each time we go down. And then we're like, oh, I didn't realize that thing was actually as big as I thought, or like I didn't even know that was an issue, until you start unpacking the layers, because I guess there's an endless amount of layers.
And it is scary. You unpack something and you realize, for myself lately, I've realized I never grew up with boundaries. And as you're saying before about change, the mind doesn't like it, and you're trying to rewire your brain. I think they say it takes, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but they say something about it takes 21 days to actually make a change. So I don't know. I guess it's related to.
There's a lot of theories on it. Yeah.
And I try to put that in practice, but like sometimes I go back to day one because I've mucked up already, and but yeah, I've noticed I didn't have a lot of boundaries. I've obviously got abandonment issues, and trying to unpack, why I allowed that in when I did, and trying to, backtrack, especially when I grew up with my parents are still together, so I don't have anything to come to you and go, I was, abused as a child, or, I lost a parent, or, my parents never separated. So I can't come to you or a therapist or someone and go, oh, this is why.
Yeah.
But to allow myself to be in my my marriage and ignore so much and go through what I went through. And I'm constantly questioning why, and I'm constantly digging, finding things, and I might not get straight to the answer, to the pot of gold, but I'm constantly finding other things. And yeah, it's amazing, but but I can one day be really aware and present, and then the next day just, I might not want to react. I'm trying not to react at the moment. So that's my thing. I never had boundaries as a child and growing up, and trying to put healthy boundaries in place. And another thing is it reacting, just reacting more healthy. Like I could go 0 to 100 if, not right now, but if I'm in a relationship and something annoys me, I can, and we all can. Or if you get a text you're not happy with, you can react with another text. And so it's just that trying to react more maturely emotionally.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's pretty hard also too. So mic turned up. It's also pretty hard too with when we do react to, things and get angry. And it's like when we go to that 0 to 100, we don't always have exactly 100% control over that. So everyone's like, I hear this still the same as you got 100% control over things. And it's like, well, when trauma gets triggered and
mhm.
emotions get triggered, you're going to react straight away. And in that moment, you're not wanting to be
Yeah,
angry. It's
yeah,
because it's triggered something inside
yeah,
of you
yeah,
that's like, okay, this needs to be dealt with, or it's like, making you feel insecure, inadequate, and a bunch of other things as well.
yeah, yeah. That's so true, and that's something that people aren't, people that aren't self-aware like us. They just react and then go on, don't they? Or they go through an argument, whereas where we tap into it and we go, oh, I didn't like how I reacted. Why did I do that? Oh, okay, that made me feel like that, and that made me feel like that because of that.
Yeah.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah, because it's a quote by Peter Crone that I really like. It's like every time a trigger comes up, it's a new level of freedom. It gives you
Yeah,
access to a new level of freedom.
yeah,
So it's like when you do get triggered, you have that chance to actually, work out the tools of why you're getting triggered, and then look inside of you and then look for the part of you that is getting triggered, like that little boy or little girl inside you, and hold space for him or her, and and allow them to have that tantrum on the inside, even though it sounds a bit
yeah,
woohoo, but like it's just like holding that space for like that child inside. And it was like a really good quote that I like. I can't remember who quoted it. It's like, when you see a man that is angry, deep down is a little boy that wants to cry.
yes, yeah. I love that. Yeah, that's great. And it is it's a lot of work, isn't it? And it's so many years. I mean, I just turned 37. When you look at all the layers, all the years, and you look at, if your life was a film and you spread it out straight and you looked at, that's all the imprints, all your beliefs, all your values, all your imprints, anything that's happened, anything that caused that trigger when you were, 5 years old or 6 years old, that's, if you lay it out like one big film, that's what we're digging. That's all the layers that we're, you know, trying to unpack. It's just mental.
Yeah, and it's like working out, trauma healing. It's like this forever thing, because each day
Oh,
you might have that little thing that actually causes you trauma, and then later on down the track you're gonna have to deal with it, because trauma is like generally when the brain's not feeling or the body doesn't feel safe. So
yeah,
then it will, like, okay, you get
yes,
that cause and reflect,
yes,
causes trauma. And then it's like also with the way that we are too, is like we're not like overly community based and talk about things. And one thing that lowers our trauma response, so then doesn't affect us later, is actually having a really good community.
yeah. That's so true. So very true. So I guess coming back to this emotional and mental abuse, um, if I was to try to explain kind of signs to look out for, or
Hmm.
what another might be doing, they might be themselves sensitive to criticism, so they can give it but they can't receive it. I think I touched base before about being a bit superficial, so they've got you know everything going on the outside, but they've got an ugly, horrible soul on the inside. They get angry and rage really quickly. um, they can lack empathy, and as I said before, they get pleasure out of drama and misery. And the isolating and controlling you is a big factor as well. Acting superior and like dominant, and you're submissive. So like getting you to apologize, and even if you're questioning yourself and saying like, what did I do anything wrong? And they're twisting the conversation that might have happened earlier, or what happened, the situation that happened, and you're kind of questioning this, if you're right and what you did, and then you end up apologizing anyway. So they kind of love that.
Hmm. Yeah, they like throwing it like definitely back, as we spoke about before.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's like the biggest thing, because it's like I think like the even though this sounds really weird, I think it's like the like when you are like you get to meet these types of people, it's like getting to know a bit of their background and their family story, because then it's like then understanding when they came from and then the type of person they could be and where their self-awareness is with things. So it's like figuring out the questions to ask around those situations and see what kind of answer they come up with.
Yeah, 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 definitely. Because they're not born like that. They're not born like that. So as you said, it's their background, it's how they were brought up. It's the imprints on their life which made them like that.
Mm,
It's a personality trait. So they're not just born and they're like, I'm going to be a narcissist,
mm.
I'm a gaslight. It's imprints that they had during, things that happen in their life, and their lack of values and morals, and but it all becomes into their belief system, and what's making them tick to do that, like they're obviously getting some kind of stimulation in the brain when they're getting that sympathy from you, and they're playing the victim card, and something that's
It'd be like a sense of connection, safety, a bunch of things I probably didn't get when they
yeah,
were growing up or when they've
yeah,
gone through a traumatic
yeah,
experience. So it's like, okay, I wasn't in control as a child, but now I can be in control now. So then it's like flipping the script. And this is like, as I think talking about this off air, is like, this is where family cycles come through. And it's till that person has the awareness to break the cycle, it's just going to continue on. And then
yeah,
whoever's in their firing range of being the victim, say like in relationships, even their kids, it's just, and that's where the cycle would continue. And then and then they end up getting divorced, and then a bunch of other things.
yeah. And it's true, unless that narcissist or abuser wakes up and says, I'm going to change, it won't happen, because they need to do the work that me and you do every day. They can say it. They can say to their wife, I'm not going to cheat again. Let's work on our marriage. But is the actions going to match the words? I'm big on actions, man. Like you can say whatever to me, but unless your actions are matching your words, and that's when they will go down one road and keep doing it, or they'll go down the other and actually help and fix themselves, and I guess that's where you are like us, or you stay being like them.
100% it. And I think it's like the big thing is finding that why behind of why you want to do it or why you want to fix the relationship. Because if that why is not big enough, you're going to continue going down that,
Yeah,
survival patterns. And then also putting things in place and those tools. And
yeah,
this is for anyone who's just starting to become aware of these behaviors in themselves as well. It's like finding those tools that you can go to and will start using to help you to break these cycles of things, because we all have them deep down one way or other. It's all a spectrum at the end of the day. It's having that awareness. Okay, this is how I've been behaving. How can I fix this in
mm,
myself? Where does it descend from? Who can I ask for help? Or what, there's books out there. There's, you can Google search anything these days, and the first two searches will actually help you to start your journey
mm.
on this. And this goes either way.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess if you, I mean, if you're a victim, you listen to this and you really resonate. I do wonder, do many abusers and narcissistic people listen and actually go, oh, that's me, I do that, you know what I mean? Or do they do it and it's just embedded in them? And yeah, I do wonder that a lot, because a lot of victims will listen to this and they'll get the aha moments and go, oh, I get that. Oh yeah, he's gaslighting me, or she's isolating me, she's trying to control me, and they'll get it. But I really hope that someone on the other side that's not a victim, that's actually abusing, can listen to something like this and go, you know what, I want to help myself. I think that I do that, and they want to put some actions and, like you said,
Mm.
into.
Yeah, so what are some of the tools that you use to help you to navigate and heal yourself and get to where you are from this point from the start?
Well, first of all, I'm really aware. So I'm really aware of my emotions. So I guess becoming aware that what anxiety was, first of all. So anxiety really made me aware of this feel off. I feel, you know, it might be loss of appetite, nervousness, always feeling fight or flight mode. So that kind of really triggered me to look deeper as to why I feel that. Then I might, be in
Yeah.
a relationship where I start to notice, red flags and things like that. And I, I start to know that I'm completely ignoring them. And you know, I don't know why.
Yeah, because I was gonna jump in there a little bit as well, like especially with anxiety, because anxiety is the first thing that I know it comes up when we don't feel safe, right? And it's a thing that we get taught a lot to ignore, especially in I don't know the way I keep picking on society, but yeah, it's just the way the thing because we suppress it. It's like when you start feeling nervous and that it's like I'm trying to think of what this put this into words. It's like, okay, anxiety comes up, it means your body's not feeling safe. This isn't right for you. The body has this unique intelligence to know what's right from wrong. And sometimes this gets kind of, thrown out of the way, especially through our childhood and that because then it makes it harder to navigate depending on what backgrounds and what stuff's happened to you. But that's normally the first indicator, okay, this is not really that right.
Yeah, 100%. So I guess that was for me. That was like, okay, I don't feel right. I looked into therapy and I did do therapy and things, but I find my friendships and social circles and looking in deeper into my spirituality helped me personally. Other people are different, but I get more of a kick and more clarity out of a walk on the beach and chatting to my friend, chatting to more people like yourself that understand. And I've been on retreats, so health retreats, and you find yourself around like-minded people, being around them. You just walk away like you feel like a new person. You come out and you feel so found and so clear. And for me, I feel like a bit of a black sheep in this world. And like, my blog's Lost Girl on the Gold Coast. And I have felt lost for a while. And I guess being around like-minded people that know me, so my family and friends, and just talking. I read a lot. I listen to podcasts like yourself, and I just read self-help books. So other people might find, I don't know, hypnotherapy or counseling therapy, that type of thing help. For me, it's just nature. It's reading. It's even a lot of my clients are therapeutic for me because they are doing the personal development. So I do beauty therapy, and a lot of them clients just are chatting to me while they're having a facial or a massage. That for me, I don't know. It's just, when they leave, I just feel my cup's so full because they've counseled me, I've counseled them, and it's just getting it all out. So I don't know. It's just everyone's so different. Finding what clicks for you, I don't know.
Yeah, that's so true, and I love how you said that as well, especially with therapy and talk-based therapy,
Mm,
because I think it's valued, and if you don't have a support network, it is very good. But like cognitive behavior therapy is actually the
mm,
results in it are quite low,
mhm.
right? Because trauma is stored in the body, and then the mind doesn't always won't remember it, especially the cognitive mind. And
Yeah.
that's just like a lot of research that I've come across. And that's why I guess a lot of the spiritual work, woohoo kind of stuff, because it taps more into the body stuff, actually
Mm,
kind of helps to release trauma a lot more. Or even, talking to people and allowing those emotions to come up also, helps to feel safe, which is pretty, in
mhm.
some aspects, pretty similar to therapy, right? It's like, and
I think this needs to be added more in friend groups, is like creating those safe space for your friends, families to have those conversations
Yeah.
with, you know.
100%. I think for me, being understood is a huge thing for me. Being feeling misunderstood triggers me or something. I don't like it. I like feeling understood. Being one-on-one or in a crowd and just feeling misunderstood um, puts me off, and I'll close down. But if I'm one-on-one or in a crowd and I'm like, and it's, everyone's talking and no, you can't stop. It's like everyone's just having a go in the conversation. And it might be at a retreat around personal development, around trauma, around, and you're just like, yes, I get it. I feel exhausted afterwards. I have to say, I feel really drained after them kind of conversations, but oh my God, my cup's full. I feel understood. I feel like I've gotten somewhere and I'm so clear. Like, yeah, but I can get the same clarity, probably not to the extent of sitting at the beach at the top of Burley Hill and just watching the waves and thinking, listening to, music or a podcast. It's like I always go with my mood, how I'm feeling. Sometimes you feel like being around people, sometimes you don't. And sometimes you get so sick of, if you're fresh out of that relationship, you get sick of talking to the people that are there for you because they've probably been there the whole time trying to be there and you haven't listened to them. So because you've been so isolated for so long, it's so hard to go straight back and let it all out. You need to kind of ease back into it.
Yeah, I love how you said that bit, because that is very true. You got to like ease into it. And, I guess it's like even, or even like finding that person, be able to blur a little bit out. But then, with each person, depending how they are at the time as well, and how much they've been trying to support you through the journey, because sometimes you can go and blurt everything out. And then because you've ignored them so long, they're like, what's going on?
Yeah. Yeah. So them true friends are the ones that are like, I can see that this and this is happening, and and I'll be here when you're ready. And then they're there when they're true to their word, and they're there when you're on the other side and you're like, you come out of it. But you kind of just need to grieve the process. And because of that change that we spoke about earlier, so your brain is getting used to not messaging or calling that person and trying not to go back because it's familiar and it's comfortable. And so you're trying to get through that, the day and the weeks of not contacting that person and not hearing from them or not waking up next to them or whatever. And so once you get out of that and you're on the other side, then that's when you can kind of reach out to the other people. And if they're there, they're true friends for you, especially if they tried to be there during that time and could see all the red flags and didn't understand why you stuck around. They're the people that are true friends.
Mm-hmm. And I like how you mentioned too, like it's like dealing with that grief, and whatever emotions come up, just sit with them, because like you're kind of unbottling everything. And then if you start suppressing, you normally go back to kind of those things. And these emotions that come up are quite hard to deal with because it's like your first time kind of feeling them. Even if you experience with them, they're still hard to deal with because just emotions are, because we get taught to feel happiness all the time, for example.
Yeah. Like I've never been addicted to anything. So I've never been like a smoker or a gambler or addicted to drugs or anything like that. And so when I try to explain to my friends how it is, because they just don't get it, I say like, that's my addiction. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Like that is a dopamine that I'm getting from the abuser or the narcissist. Like, even though they're making me feel anxious and they're making me feel off from the emotion.
Yeah, you get a sense of connection, because that's what addiction is. It's like
that.
So when you get addicted, you can be addicted to shopping, relationships, there's a whole bunch of I could list a whole bunch of things. But generally it's you're searching for that connection, even if it's that connection is not good for you. Keep searching for it, because the opposite of addiction is actually connection. It's actually real in-person connection, which helps secure addiction. And like getting a little attention. This is why you see a lot of people that relapse all the time. That's why the sexual rate is quite high. Quite low, because it's like people are going into these facilities where they feel really connected and they get back out in society, and then we're not connected anymore. Okay, I'll go back to using the drugs because that's how I feel better about myself.
Yes. And that's how I explain to my friends, like that person is the crack pipe, that's how I explain my addiction to that connection. And that actually helps me understand addictions, because I've never had that. So I actually look at my addiction to the connection and go, okay, now I get how that person needs that cigarette or can't give up smokes, or it's hard to explain to people that don't get it, but that is me, and that's because I am.
Yeah, I fully understand that. And a really good book on it's called Chasing the Scream by Johan Harris. I think I said his name right there. Just for anyone listening, it explains addiction super well, and he actually has a really good TED talk on it, talking about how opposite of addiction is actually connection, and we're going through a world. And it also is the book that's really good called Lost Connections, which talks about depression and all that kind of stuff and really breaks that down. So
amazing. See how like when it all makes sense, this is what lights me up. It's like it all makes sense, and it all kind of unravels. And I guess doing your podcast and making it aware to other people, hopefully it makes sense to them, and they listen and they're like, oh, this is me,
Yeah, it's just like putting that piece of the puzzle out there for people to like that little piece of information that, because there's so much of this out there, but then someone might give their spin on it, on this like subject or a different subject, and then they finally resonate with that thing, even though they've listened to it that many times, and then someone gives their flavor on it, and it's like, aha, I get it now.
Yeah, it's just the aha moments. And it's like sometimes that can just make you feel so much better, and just make you see light. And even though you've got another layer to unravel and another one and another one, and it's like never ending, sometimes it's just like, it's pretty cool to for it to make sense. And especially when you're talking to someone where it's making more sense, it's like,
it's huge. So I'll probably wrap it up on this question. So for anyone that's actually in the situation right now and looking to take that step out, how would they approach a conversation, say with a friend or a family member, to help them to take the steps to get out?
Pretty much let your walls down. Don't let pride be in the way. Let all of that aside and literally just go like a dog with its little tail in between its legs, and just be vulnerable. Don't be scared. Open up to someone that you can trust, someone that loves you and that's going to be there for you, and just explain. If you resonated with anything on this podcast, just explain that I feel like I've been emotionally abused, and this was happening and that was happening, and just open up. Be vulnerable. Don't be too proud. Some people do shut off or lock down, and because they have been isolated in that relationship. You need to open up, be vulnerable, and take your time to grieve, but open up to someone, even if it's just one person, just so you've got someone to be there for you. And I guess just be vulnerable and don't be too proud.
100%. And vulnerability is probably one of our biggest strengths that we can do, because it's really hard to be vulnerable.
Don't let yourself be ashamed. You're not feel guilt or shame because of what you've gone through. You should feel proud. Feel proud that you've become aware, and that you want to get out of it and seek help by a loved one. Definitely.
Yeah, wicked. That's awesome advice. Thank you so much for coming on and talking about this subject. It's been a pleasure having you on, and thank you for helping spread awareness about it. I think it's very important.
Thanks, Mitch.
Thanks for tuning in today's episode, guys. Be sure to give it a like, comment, let us know what you think. If you think a friend would value it, share it with them. And also too, to help support the podcast a little extra bit, go to patreon.com/studio mindfulness, and to check out all my programs and all the other content I have going on, go to mitchellcrocker.com. That has all my social media links and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, hope you enjoyed today's episode. Cheers for tuning in too.